Welcome, everybody. My name is Mary Hyatt, and you are here on the Mary Hyatt Show. You are in the right place. So excited to have you on this wonderful Wednesday as we sort of wrap up the end of August, as we welcome in sort of a new season. And I know everybody's going back to school, and the eclipse just happened, which was like a total body reset for all of us. I know we've been feeling the intensity, the emotions behind that, and a lot of anticipation, I think, going into this season, kind of the last quarter of the year. And I know for those of you who have your own businesses and who are working from home, you're starting to think about that and get excited about what the fall and the winter is going to bring. So I'm just so glad you're here. And if this is your first time, welcome. So honored that you are spending some time with me today. I'm super excited about today's topic because we are going to be talking about generosity, and kind of in a different way, I think, than you're used to thinking about it. But I had a moment for myself of scarcity this week where I wanted to give, and then I had this fear that I didn't have enough. And so it just brought on all this kind of thought-provoking journal exercises and all sorts of stuff, thinking about this idea of generosity. And for those of you who don't know me, I am a life coach. I have just the most amazing clients who I get to help with finding their voice, becoming fully alive, tapping into their truth selves and living from that place. I'm also an entrepreneur. I am going to be releasing an amazing course, online 6-week course coming out in October that is all about redefining the word babe. So it's called Babe Redefined. Make peace with the mirror, quiet your inner bully, and love your body. And I am also a presidential diamond with doTERRA essential oil. So before we get into everything that we have to talk about today, let's start the show. Oh my gosh, so excited for today's topic, all about generosity. Like I said, my name is Mary Hyatt. I am your show host for the day, and just grateful that y'all are here. And like I said at the beginning, comment below, talk to me, let's create a dialogue, which makes it way more fun as we go through our Facebook Live show today. But as I've been thinking about generosity, I realize, like, in the core of my being, I want to be known as a generous person. Like, I've always really valued that. And I think, as I'm moving into deeper parts of my career and creating programs and doing all these amazing things, part of why I want to make money is so that I can spoil my friends, so that I can create these magical moments, these magical memories for my friends, whether that be travel, whether that be a meal, whether that be a concert, just creating these magic moments. I love to entertain, and the idea of being able to just gift somebody with an entire trip or whatever just gets me excited. It helps me show up in what I'm doing for work because I want to be generous. Ultimately, I want to bless people in a really incredibly generous way, regardless. And I was thinking about this, and now that I am financially successful and debt-free, I was rewinding back at a stage of my life. I was talking with my doTERRA team on money issues this past week, and we did a whole call on money issues. And I remembered there was a time when I was extremely, I was in an extreme debt, like close to $100,000 in debt. And I did not have a lot of money. My ex-husband and I, we were literally scrimping by. We sold my car we shared a car for about 2 years because we needed the cash from my car. It was a rough time. We were building his business and we were really broke, but we really had this desire to continue to be generous. There was something inside of ourselves that knew that when we would give, when we would reach out and offer things to people, time, money, resources, whatever it was, that was going to come back to us tenfold. And I don't know if that was my upbringing, that I learned that principle, but we really had a high value on generosity. And so we would we would have people over for dinner. And it could be cornbread, beans and rice. And you better believe I made that stuff freaking delicious. It was great. But we would have people over. It's like whatever we had, we wanted to give it. And I would consider myself now an incredibly generous person. But I think that's been true over time. Like I've just really wanted to be known as a generous person. I've always been generous. I would literally give you the shirt off of my back. It's just a high need. And as I've been researching it, as I have been studying money consciousness and abundance and all these issues of bringing more wealth into your life, one of the key principles of that is generosity. The more you give, the more you receive. Not that is the goal is to get more, but there's some fundamental universal law that happens where when you offer without expectation, you are going to receive. And I was with my friend Natalie yesterday for lunch, and she has a brand new baby, he's a few months old. The most precious little boy you have ever seen. He's got these huge little cheeks. And so, of course, I don't have children. So, like, anytime I'm around a baby, I snatch them up. And I love babies. So, I took this baby, Theodore, and I gave him, I'm not kidding you, probably like 100 kisses during a 45-minute lunch. Like, I was like, I just could not stop kissing those little cheekies. And every time I kissed him, he just smiled so big. He loved it. He loved that affection. He loved that attention. And in return, I got so much joy out of it. I loved getting just that validation that I'm giving this love, I'm also receiving this love. And to me, that is generosity. All those kisses, I didn't need anything from him. I literally just wanted to shower my love on this little sweet boy. That to me is the purest form of generosity. But something has happened along the way when we think about generosity. It feels really exhausting. It feels like, God, I have to really give one more freaking thing. And the interesting thing about generosity, and I'm going to go back to that in a second, but the interesting thing about generosity is that it is a universal value or principle over all religions. But something has happened, especially the way that I was raised in a Christian church, something has happened where giving, being generous, feels more like an obligation than a choice. It's like, I can remember in church as a little girl, they would pass around the offering bowl thing and they would pass it around, and it was just like this pressure and obligation and zero heart, zero passion, zero abundance. It was like, I have to do that, which creates a lot of resentment. But it doesn't negate the fact, I feel like that there's a miss. The church is missing something. Religion is missing something, whether you're in a Christian church or not. Offering plate, Brittany, thank you. It's been a while, guys. It's been a while. But something has happened in religion, I think sometimes, where it shifted from the original intent of the gift of giving and what a blessing that is to the giver into now an obligation where we feel like we're depleted, we don't have enough energy, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money. And so why do we even want to give more? So I was kind of looking at some passages. I had my assistant Shelly help me with this, but this is a look at generosity across faiths. Okay, the Dalai Lama. Generosity is the most natural outward expression of an inner attitude of compassion and loving kindness. This is from a Jewish text. And when your brother will become poor and you will extend your hand to him. All right, next one. The wise man does not lay up his own treasures. The more he gives to others, the more he has for his own. Buddha, give even if you only have a little. The Quran, and whatever you spend in good, it will be repaid to you in full, and you shall not be wronged. And then Proverbs, one gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give and only suffers want. Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. I think one of the most powerful pieces of this is the other person who withholds only suffers want. And I find that so fascinating. So when we don't give, we are at a place where we want more. But when we give, we are satisfied. We have what we need. We have what we want. And so it is really powerful. Jessica, I love that you said that you want to be generous with your friends and your family too. Love that. I'm kind of curious, how many of you would consider yourself as a generous person? Like if you were to define who you were as part of your identity, how many of you would say, yeah, like I am a generous person? Just type in a number 1 in the comments below. If you would consider yourself a generous person, feel free to, brag on yourself for a hot second. If you would consider yourself a generous person, just type in number 1. I just kind of want to see where you guys are at. You don't have to. Like, the reason we're having this discussion is because most of us don't feel that way. So regardless, we get it, okay? Generosity is important. We've been taught this for a really long time. But like I said, we might feel stuck when we think about it. Caitlin, Brittany, Jessica, you guys said number 1. Tina, number 1. And the reason sometimes we feel stuck in this is because we feel like we don't have enough. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough of this. We don't have enough of that. And so when we give, we are doing it out of obligation. We start to feel resentful. And it doesn't feel good. It's kind of like, God, I literally don't have anything else to give. I mean, how many of you guys have felt that before when somebody asks you to do something or somebody needs something from you, and you're literally think to yourself, I don't have anything else. I have nothing else to give, whether that's emotionally, financially, through your time. You're like, I literally have nothing else to give. Everyone's sucking me dry and you're asking me to give more. Like, are you freaking kidding me? No. But we probably will give anyways because, again, we're obligated. That good old Christian guilt we've got going on. But both of these are birthed out of a place of scarcity. I don't have enough, so I can't give. And then the other piece of the scarcity is I won't get enough in return. Like if I give, then I'm going to be depleted and there's nothing else that's going to come back into me. So we feel like we don't have enough to give in the first place. And then in the second place, we feel like if we give, it's not going to be returned to us. So we're depleted and then we're going to be depleted more. And so where does that leave us without generosity? It leaves us in resentment. It leaves us in guilt. It leaves us in bitterness because we are just depleted, or fear of being depleted even more. And so the goal to me of generosity, if you go back to that image of just just kissing that little boy, is to get to the place where we get out of the should and enter into a place of I get to, I can, out of this abundance. Because generosity to me, if I could go back and sort of define generosity to me is giving without expecting anything in return. Not out of the place of obligation at all. But with the mindset of, I'm giving this as a gift. And I don't need anything in return. And it's coming out of a place of excess, really. And I know, for me, generosity was something I witnessed as a kid. I saw my dad being really generous, even when we were so incredibly broke, tipping people more than he probably even had. And my dad is an incredibly wealthy person now in his financial realm, in his spirit, in his life and his friendships and love, he is just a very wealthy, well-being. Wealthy has the root of well-being, of his whole being. Well in his whole being. Wealthy. And I really believe a huge piece of that was his generosity that he offered even when he didn't have anything to give. Brittany, I love this. You said, I may not have much money right now, but I have time and thoughtfulness. For example, I make little birthday memes to send people to make them laugh and smile. I love it. That's so awesome. Love, love, love. Yeah, that is really the whole point. What do you have to give in this moment? But I want to look at generosity in 3 new ways before we can move out of a place of should and into a place of I get to or I can. We have to look at generosity in 3 new ways. Now, the first new way to look at generosity is that there are different types. Brittany, this is kind of what you are hitting on here, which I love. There are different types of generosity. I think we typically think that the only way that we can be generous is with money. And 99% of people out there feel like they don't have enough money. And so generosity becomes in their mind something that is instantly going to create stress because they have to give out of a deficit. And oftentimes, anytime we're feeling stressed, I would say a lot of the times, anytime that we're feeling stressed, what happens? We avoid until there is enough guilt or enough obligation that we eventually give in some way, that we eventually say yes in some way. Hence the whole idea of tithing. You must tithe 10%. Not really a choice. I don't really have it to give, but I'm essentially being made to. And so I'm going to have to do it. So once there's enough obligation, enough guilt, we give, and that always creates more resentment. So we got to look at what are the different types of ways to give outside of just financial giving. So the first way that we can give, different kind of way we can give, is through emotional generosity. I love this one. You can be emotionally generous or you can be emotionally stingy. I kind of think of like, let's say somebody comes to you and they just get a promotion at their job and they're like, oh my God, this is so exciting. And you have in that moment the opportunity to be emotionally generous or emotionally stingy, to feel like there is enough or to feel like there is not enough, that there is room for everybody to succeed, yourself included, or there's competition. And you're like, oh my God, if this person gets a promotion, what does that mean for me? All of a sudden I'm feeling like I'm not good enough. I'm feeling like, what's wrong with me, or she's more successful than I am, or she's going to make more money than I am. Now all of a sudden I want to be emotionally stingy. And so I can't celebrate with you because that threatens my sense of self-worth. I can't celebrate with you because that is threatening to what I'm doing with my life and maybe says I'm not good enough. But this is where we get to be emotionally generous. Like, oh my God, like how freaking exciting. You got this promotion. Let's celebrate. Let's have a drink. Let's have a beer. Let's have a water. I'm going to toast you, whatever it is. And you celebrate them. You're emotionally generous with them. Celebration to me, and entering into celebration is emotional generosity. And again, it's like, okay, if we think about this same type of generosity, we can also be generous for giving people the benefit of the doubt. So let's say somebody doesn't show up for something. You can be generous of spirit, or you can believe the worst of somebody. You can say, I don't know what's going on in their life, but I really want to believe that something came up, that didn't make it happen, that whatever. You can be generous, emotionally generous, in believing the best of someone. And I love this quote from Marianne Williamson. She says, it is an act of gracious generosity to accept a person based on what we know to be the truth about them, regardless of whether or not they are in touch with that themselves. I think that part of being generous is being willing to see somebody for who we know them to be, even if they're not displaying that. Generous is like being gracious. being generous of spirit, even when somebody is a jerk, even when somebody is rude or mean or whatever. Being emotionally generous is saying like, I don't know what's going on in your life. Obviously, there's some hurt going on. There's some deep wounding that's going on. I'm going to give you grace here. That's being emotionally generous. So that is one way, a different type of being generous. Second way, this is kind of a fun one. I don't know how else to say that other than to have word generosity. And this is about compliments. This is about being generous with your words. This is one of my favorite ways to be generous. I try to practice this every single day. And I will say to as many people as I can, who work with me in my doTERRA business, I am so proud of you. I am so proud of you. Like, look at you. Like, look at what you're creating. Look at what you're doing. You're kicking ass. You are amazing. Those words of affirmation can be like a lifeline to people. If words of affirmation are one of your love languages, if you guys are familiar with the love languages, would you just type in a number 2 in the comments below? Okay, if you love words of affirmation, if you love receiving words of affirmation, or if you love giving, like I love to give words of affirmation, type in a number 2 in the comments. I want to know from you guys. But this is where, for me, like anybody who checks me out or anybody who I am running into, I might just say like, girl, I love your lipstick. Oh my God, I love those earrings. You are radiant today. And looking people in the eye and saying, thank you. That is word generosity. How can I give an abundance of compliments today? That is word generosity. How can I give an abundance of word generosity today? We've got Brittany with a 2, Shelly with a 2, Carrie with a 2. Caitlin, you're saying, love this. Being generous to others the way that they need it. Yeah. And sometimes you may not know, but giving a compliment, giving words of affirmation, like I feel like you can never go wrong. And sometimes it snaps people out of their low level. And it's like, thank you. Like I love doing that when you can tell people are having a really hard day and you can just be like, oh my God, I love your shirt. So cute. Or I love your glasses. Where'd you get those from? Whatever it is, it gives people a chance to breathe and remember the goodness of humanity. And you get to give them that gift. Okay. The third type of generosity that I think you can bring in is time generosity. Now, people might say, oh, I don't have any time. I don't have any more time. But I want to shift your perspective on this a little bit. And time generosity to me is presence. It's whatever time you do have with somebody to be fully present. That to me is time generosity, to be present with somebody, to listen to what they are saying, to really hear them, to seek to understand, to sit with somebody. Generous with our time means being present on a phone call, in person, at a lunch, whatever it is. It doesn't even have to mean just giving more of your time, although of course it can mean that. But it's the time that you do have being present. Isn't that a beautiful way to think about it? I just had that aha today. And I was like, time generosity equals presence. Yes. Tweetable. I don't tweet really, but if you tweet, that's a tweetable. Okay. The next type of generosity is service generosity. Now, I'm going to be legit honest about this. This is my least favorite of all the generosities. So I really feel like I go heavy on the other ones because I'm not a big service person. Like some people thrive on that. Some people love it. They volunteer everywhere. They are saying yes and doing all these amazing projects for people. And that is not the way that lights my fire, that lights my heart up to give. And that doesn't make me a bad person. Like I have really come to terms with the fact that because I don't like to volunteer at certain things doesn't make me a bad person. Because I am so generous in other ways. There is no right kind of generosity or better kind of generosity or wrong kind of generosity or worse kind of generosity. But for those of you who are service oriented, maybe it's taking somebody's kids for the afternoon. Maybe it is offering to pick them up and drop them off. Maybe it's bringing somebody a cup of coffee. Maybe it's offering to help set up for an event or tear down for an event. in some way offering that service. That is another kind of generosity. Anybody here in the comments, like anybody here love just doing acts of service? It's not my jam. I've made peace with that. But anybody here just like freaking love it? Brittany, you're like, it's not for everybody, and that's not a bad thing. Thank you for the validation. Yes, you can just be generous in a million different ways. Okay, last but not least, we talked about this. When we think about generosity, we think about it as being the only way to be generous, and that's the financial generosity. But I do want to mention this because my experience, my belief that is echoed throughout these major religions, and it's like one of those universal truths. I love universal truths because you're going to find it everywhere, is that when you give, you will receive. When you financially give, you will financially reap. It is a universal law. It is a universal truth. I have seen that. And it may not be an equal give and an equal receive, but you will get that. It's so, so powerful. And this could be giving to people in need. This could be charity. This could be donating to nonprofits. But I'm going to tell you what I do. And this is the simplest thing when you're looking at this type of generosity. And this is something that I learned from my dad. I mentioned it earlier. Tip like you are rich. Shout out to Michael Hyatt. Thanks, Dad. Tip like you are rich. Y'all, the service industry sucks, okay? It sucks. People are usually working that as a second job. It's just not a fun environment. You got a lot of abuse. It's no fun. So tip your servers like you are rich. Just in case you didn't know, bare minimum should be 20%. We have graduated from 15%. Bare minimum should be 20%. If you're not tipping 20%, start tipping 20%. And if you want to go above and beyond and tip like you are rich, like there's no limit, give somebody crazy tip. I remember when I was early on in my doTERRA business, and I was building that business, and y'all, I was broke, and the reason I was building it, I wanted to make some money, replace my income. I needed to get out of debt. I was under a lot of stress. I didn't have a lot of money, but I was in Chicago for an event, and for whatever reason, I had a $100 bill. Now, $100 was at that time a ton of money. I mean that was going to pay for a lot of different things on that trip. But there was a server who was serving us that night, and she was just having a hard night. And truth be told, the people that I was with, they were being rather rude, and they were sending their food back and all this stuff. And my heart broke. Honestly, my heart broke for her. And I just thought, man, it's late. She's doing all this amazing stuff for us. They've accommodated this big party. And at the end of the day, I thought, you know what? There's more where this came from. There's more where this came from. She needs it more than I need it. And I'm just going to give her this $100 bill as a tip. And I, folded it up. It wasn't about me and me looking good. So nobody at the table knew that I did it. But I gave that to her. Now, I never heard from her. I don't know if that was amazing for her, if that changed her life, if she cried afterwards and she, sent a prayer up for me. I don't know, and it didn't matter. Because what I felt in my heart was, this person needs this more than me. And I expected nothing in return. And I don't tip $100 every time I go out. Okay, let's be honest. But I know that I'm going to tip like I'm rich. In any way, that could mean $1 more than you're used to giving. That could be $2 more than you think you should give. Sometimes, so often people are looking at their check and they're doing the math and they're going, okay, well, what's the bare minimum that I can give? And, can I justify that their service was bad or whatever? And they're looking and saying, 15%, and they're calculating it out on their phone, and that's all they give. That's the opposite of generosity. Generosity doesn't need a reason to be generous. Generosity doesn't need proof that somebody's earned it. Generosity is for the sake of a blessing, to offer that. So tip like you are rich, whether that's $1 or $2 or $100 more than you're used to giving. Tip like you are rich. Okay, so let's hop into now the second new way to think about generosity. I think this is going to be really helpful for you, is that when you're thinking about generosity, good news, you can have boundaries. Can I get a hallelujah? Can I get an amen? You can have boundaries. I think part of the reason why we aren't giving anymore is because we have had poor boundaries and we're burnt out. We've been saying yes when we mean no. We give, and we feel like we have nothing left to give. I mean, that's honest. That's like true. Can I get some thumbs up for that? Can I get some hearts? If you want to be honest and say yes, this is where I've been feeling. I feel like I can't give anymore because all I do is give. But most of us emotionally give so much that we have no more room left for generosity. Caitlin, you're saying amen. Renee, you said you were an over tipper. I love it. Yes. Cheryl, amen from Canada. I love it. Hi from Canada, Cheryl. It's almost like we give all of our gives from perceived obligations. We give all of our gives from perceived obligations. So our tanks are empty to allow real generosity to flow out of us. So let's check in with ourselves in the moment. Don't ever give. Don't ever give when you are expecting something in return. And don't ever give when you don't want to give. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Don't say yes when you really mean no. That is a recipe for resentment. You get to decide how, and you get to decide when you give. Generosity does not mean saying yes all the time. Now, I will encourage you to go back to one of my earlier videos. I think it was episode maybe number 3. I'll put it in the comments, but it's a video that says no is a complete sentence. And I love that video because it will help you feel more confident in saying no and teach you how to do that. So if you need some help with that, do that. But there is a big difference between can't and I don't want to. Can't and I don't want to. So when we're looking at boundaries, we have to check in with them, because when we say can't, that is a place of victim. That is a place of I don't have anything to give. And that's not true. That is just simply not true. I don't want to, or I choose not to, is a place of healthy boundaries. So it's a little bit of a difference there. But when you say yes, work on letting it be a true yes. And no, and say no when you mean no. So yes when you mean yes, no when you mean no. Where your yeses become a yes out of an overflow versus out of a place of deficiency. And it always feels good. It always feels good to be generous with your emotions, with your words, with your time, with your service, with your finances when you aren't depleted. The reason it doesn't feel good to give usually is because we're saying yes when we really mean no. When we're already depleted from having weak boundaries. And when you say yes out of a place of a hell yes, I want to do this, I'm going to give you all these little kisses on the cheeks, like my little baby friend, it feels good because you're doing it because you really want to do it. So when you want to do it, generosity feels great. When you feel obligated, when you feel like you have to say yes even when you mean no, it doesn't feel good. It's not going to have the same vibration coming out of you. And so it can shift into I get to, I want to, when you have great boundaries, when you've learned how to say no in a way that is really honoring to who you are. So you can have boundaries. Good news, you can have boundaries. You do not have to say yes all the time. Go back and watch the other video and I will promise it will help you with some of this. Okay, last but not least, the third way to look at generosity in a totally different way is that it shifts your mental game. If we are constantly saying, I don't have enough, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough resources, or I can't do that, that is affirming into our minds the very thing that we don't want. That is affirming in our mental dialogue, our mental game up here, affirming into our brains that we don't have enough. It goes to that place of scarcity. And when you exist in scarcity, you can never be generous. You can't. because generosity has to come out of a place of enoughness. And when you practice, and it is a practice, it's a spiritual practice, when you practice generosity, it shifts your mental game, which is so amazing. The first way that it shifts your mental game is that it snaps you out of victimhood. It snaps you out of victimhood from saying, I'm too broke to do that. Victim. Or it's out of my control. Victim. The most amazing thing about generosity is that it snaps you out of victimhood. The quickest way out of your suffering, I'm going to say this again, the quickest way out of your suffering is by being generous. Because in that moment, you realize that you are not a victim. Even if you don't have a lot of money, even if you don't have a lot of time, you can choose. And that you've created your life. You have created your life. And there are people that are worse off than you. There are people that are better off than you. And that shifting into a state of gratitude. I am so grateful for what I do have. Where can I give this? How can I offer some generosity to somebody else? So it snaps you out of that victimhood of I'm a victim, I am broke, I don't have enough time, I'm too stressed out, I'm exhausted, la 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 la. Those are the victim stories that we tell ourselves. And it gives us power. It makes us act from a place of there is something that I can do to shift this. There are ways that I can give. I have the choice to give. It's really powerful. So it's going to change your mental game big time from victim to victor. Thank you, Joel Osteen. Cheese ball, but love it. Okay. Okay. Second way that it's going to help shift our mindset is that it creates a new story. Oh my God, I love this so much. Okay, so when we tell ourselves the story of lack over and over and over again and never have enough money, maybe you say something like, oh God, I'm bleeding money, or I've got a hole in my pocket, or I feel like I'm hemorrhaging money right now. More money goes out than comes in. This is where we get stuck in our story. And our story is just affirming and looking and finding proof to bulk up whatever, to validate our story. We're going to find proof of that. So generosity gives us a chance to change the story. I have something to give. I'm not in lack. I have something to give. Time, emotional generosity, word generosity, service generosity. I have something to give that I'm not in lack. Because being in lack, telling ourselves a story of our lackness, I don't know another word for that, is defeating. It's exhausting. It is low vibration. It's depressing. And so generosity snaps it out of us, and it gives us the opportunity to create a new story, which is really amazing. And we can shift the dialogue inside of our minds to say something like, my income is constantly increasing. My income is constantly increasing. I prosper wherever I turn. Money flows easily and effortlessly to me every day. I support others in becoming prosperous, and in turn, life supports me in wondrous ways. We can change the dialogue. I'm so grateful that I have something to give. I'm so grateful. I mean, you can literally look in your house and look around and be like, God, I'm so freaking grateful. It changes the story from lack to enough, from lack to sufficiency. Okay, last but not least, the third way that this is going to change our sweet mindset is that it strengthens our abundance mindset. So if we're moving out of scarcity into abundance, I have enough. There is enough. I am enough. That is a place of a lot of power, and it shifts us out of scarcity into abundance. So affirming that lack, again, it's like a perpetual cycle. And so once something that you have that maybe you've been holding on to so freaking tight, once you finally release and you give it, all of a sudden something else can flow in. But when we hoard, when we are thrifty, when we are in that poverty mindset, poverty of spirit, poverty of money, poverty of whatever it is, when we're gripping, when we're grasping, when we're holding, when we're scared, when there's not enough, nothing can come in. But the moment that we are generous with anything, and we release, all of a sudden there is now room. We've just expanded. There is room for more to flow in. And again, that universal truth of abundance is there is enough. But it can't flow in when we're gripping and holding too tight. There's no room. But when you release and when you give, again, that's why they say it comes back tenfold. Because where you were constricted, where you were restricted, that's small. When you expand, when you release, when you give, the reason it comes back tenfold, and I love that we have 10 fingers for this analogy, is because you've just expanded the space for it to come back into. You've widened, you've allowed for more room, and then it can come in and be in. When you are in a state of being poor, being stuck, and you're hoarding, there can never be a void for something to come in because you're holding. And once you release it, it's a chance for something bigger, something better, something that's going to grow and expand. But we first have to empty to then receive. Isn't that kind of a powerful analogy? Like, I love that. I use it all the time, like here to here. That is the power of generosity. It really shifts our entire mindset. We are allowed to have boundaries, which is like so incredible. We are allowed to have boundaries, and there's all different types of generosity that we can practice, that we can give, that we can offer to people. And I love that. But generosity comes out of a place of sufficiency. It comes out of a place of enoughness, that I am enough. Therefore, I can give out lots of compliments. Sufficiency of who I am, my worth, and myself, my image. If I believe I am enough, then I can just generously compliment people because it doesn't threaten me. You know, I have enough. Repeating that to myself all the time so that I can freely give. The world has enough, therefore I can share its resources. There is enough time, therefore I can sit with you and be present. Generosity is birthed out of a place of sufficiency, out of a place of enoughness. And my spiritual practice that I want to share with you guys and encourage you as well is to model a life of enough. If I'm going to live my best life, if I'm going to be fully alive, to not be stuck in resentment or scarcity, I have to model a life of enough. That is my spiritual practice that I am constantly practicing every single day. How can I give an abundance of compliments today? What do I have to give right now in this moment? Like, one of the ways that people are so generous to me is people message me on Instagram, people message me on Facebook, they'll text me and they just say, thank you so much for your message. Thank you so much. That is the most amazing gift anybody could give me. That's so generous of them to like pause their day to say thank you. And that's something that we can all do. And so if you are stuck in the trap that you have to have money to give, it's simply not true. There are so many ways to be generous. And the amazing thing is that generosity is a game changer for our wealth and for our happiness, for our fulfillment. We need it. We as human beings need to give to be complete. And not out of a place of obligation, not out of a place of guilt, but a true overflowing yes. Because we have healthy boundaries and because we choose when and how to give. I truly cannot wait to see how you guys choose to give to others. And if you want to later, like, share with me. Cheryl, you said, I grew up believing that in order to give, I had to sacrifice. Could be time, money, love. Yeah. What a lie. What a lie. We can give and again, it's like we can give out of a place of sufficiency, out of a place of enough, and that there is no wrong way to give or no right way to give, that you give in where you feel full. If that's time, if that's words, if that's service, if that's money, you can give. And that's powerful to come out of the place of not sacrifice, but like overflow. And this is where, again, self-care, boundaries come into play, so that we can do that. And we say yes when we mean yes, and no when we mean no. So that when we say yes, it feels amazing. So that we can just give that generously. So guys, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Feel free to keep commenting. I'll come back in and share with you guys some of those thoughts. If you have other questions or ideas, please let me know. And always, always, always thank you for being here, for sharing your time with me, being generous with your time to listen to me. Follow me on Instagram, Mary G. Hyatt. Hang out with me there on my Insta story. I absolutely love it. But I am excited to be with you next week, and I will leave you with this, that the purpose of life is to be grateful, to be great, and to be full. Thank you guys so much. Hope you have a fabulous rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon.